Insurance, it's one of those things we all pay for, but how many of us really understand how it works? I mean, it can feel a little bit like magic, right? You pay a small amount of money to protect yourself from a huge, devastating loss. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain. We're going to uncover the simple, powerful logic that makes the whole thing tick. Let's get into it. And this is really the core puzzle we need to solve. It just seems to defy basic math. How can an insurance company possibly take your $1,000 premium and then turn around and promise to cover a $100,000 loss if your house burns down? Seriously, where does all that extra money actually come from? Well, that's what we're here to figure out. So, here's our roadmap. We're going to build the idea of insurance from the ground up, piece by piece, across 5 key principles. We'll start with the big idea of sharing risk, then we'll talk about what a payout is really for. After that, we'll dive into the math that lets them predict the future, see how they keep the game fair, and finally, watch how it all clicks together into one coherent system. Okay, first things first. We have to start with the most basic concept in all of insurance, how you take a huge, terrifying personal problem and turn it into a much smaller, manageable group problem. Just think about it for a second from your own perspective. The odds of your house burning down are, thankfully, very low. But if it does happen, the financial fallout is absolutely devastating. For any one of us, flying solo, that kind of risk is it's this unpredictable, terrifying thing hanging over our heads. And the solution is this brilliantly simple idea called risk pooling. Now, here's the key insight. Insurance doesn't make risk disappear. It can't do that. What it does is it transfers it. So instead of one person trying to carry this massive, uncertain weight all by themselves, that risk gets sliced up into thousands of tiny, affordable pieces and spread across a massive group of people. It turns a potential catastrophe for one into a tiny, predictable cost for everyone. The way it works is actually super straightforward. Think of it as a simple 3-step process. First, everybody in the group chips in a little bit of money. That's our premium, and it all goes into one giant shared pot. Then, inevitably, someone in that group has some really bad luck and suffers a big loss. And that's step 3. The money from that giant pot is used to cover their costs. Just like that, the individual is saved from financial ruin, and for everyone else who chipped in, the hit is so small they barely even feel it. Okay, so the pool pays out when something bad happens. We've got that. But how much does it pay? This brings us to a really critical rule that stops the whole system from being treated like a casino. This is all about the principle of indemnity, and the goal is simple. Insurance is not there to make you rich, it's there to make you whole again. The idea is to put you back in the exact same financial spot you were in the moment before the loss occurred. You're not supposed to profit from a disaster, you're just supposed to recover from it. And you see this principle play out in 2 main ways. Most of the insurance we're all familiar with, car insurance, home insurance, health insurance, those are indemnity contracts. They reimburse you for the actual documented value of what you lost. But the main exception is something like life insurance. That's what's called a valued contract. It's different because it pays a fixed, predetermined amount that was agreed upon when the policy was first signed. All right, so we have this pool of money that's ready to make fair payouts. But how in the world do insurance companies know how much money they actually need to keep in that pool? I mean, how do they predict the future? Well, this is where the magic of math gives them a sort of crystal ball. The engine that makes this entire business model work is a statistical principle called the law of large numbers, and it's truly fascinating. While it's basically impossible to predict if your specific house will have a fire this year, an insurer can predict with almost spooky accuracy how many houses out of, say, 100,000 will have a fire. The bigger the group you're looking at, the more the future stops being a mystery and starts becoming a predictable pattern. And the power of this idea just jumps off the page when you look at the scale of it all. Look, if you're a tiny company with a small pool of only 100 homes, just a little bit of bad luck, a couple more fires than you expected, and boom, you're bankrupt. But when you scale that up to a huge pool of 100,000 homes, the law of averages kicks in, big time. The losses become incredibly predictable, which means you can be confident that the premiums you're collecting will be enough to cover everything. This is why scale is everything in insurance. There really is safety in numbers. So on paper, this system seems pretty much perfect. It's elegant, it's mathematical, but there's one major human element that threatens to throw the whole thing completely off balance. What if the only people who want to buy your insurance are the ones who are pretty sure they're going to need it? This huge problem is called adverse selection. And it's all rooted in one simple fact. You know more about your own risks than the insurance company does. It's just human nature, right? The people who suspect they might get sick soon are going to be the most eager to buy health insurance. This creates a fundamental imbalance, a kind of unfair advantage. And if you let that run wild, this is what happens. Your risk pool gets completely flooded with high-risk people, while all the low-risk people, the ones who make the math work, stay away. Suddenly, all that beautiful, predictable math we were just talking about, it goes right out the window. The company starts paying out way more in claims than it's collecting in premiums, and pretty soon, the whole pool just collapses. So, what's the defense against this? It's a process called underwriting. Think of it as the insurance company's way of doing its homework to level the playing field. They assess the actual risk that each person brings to the pool, and then they adjust the price accordingly. This is exactly why a bad driving record means higher car insurance rates, or why you might need a medical exam for a life insurance policy. Higher risks have to pay higher premiums. It's the only way to keep the pool balanced and financially stable for everyone. Okay, so let's put all the pieces on the table now. Let's see how these principles all lock together to finally answer our original question. You can see now how it's all one big reinforcing cycle. It all starts with risk pooling, which lets us share the burden. Then the principle of indemnity makes sure the payouts are fair and nobody's gaming the system. The law of large numbers makes the whole thing predictable and financially viable. And finally, underwriting acts as the gatekeeper, protecting the entire system from becoming unbalanced and collapsing. You take away any one of those pieces, and the whole structure falls down. So the next time you pay your insurance premium, remember what you're really doing. You're not just buying a product off a shelf, you're buying your little piece of a massive, carefully balanced system of shared risk. And that brings me to a final thought for you. When you start to see your own policy not just as protection for yourself, but as your contribution to a community pool, how does that change your perspective on what insurance is really all about?